Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 1989 horror comedy classic, The Burbs, and this is directed by Joe Dante and stars Tom Hanks, Rick Ducommun, Carrie Fisher, Bruce Dern and Corey Feldman. This tells the story of Ray Peterson, who believes his mysterious new neighbours might be murderers. Now, The Burbs might just actually be one of my most watched movies of all time. I remember when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and my uncle came over and babysat me and my sister for the night, and we were deciding for something to watch. I had a few VHS tapes and stuff, and then he looked at the TV guide and went, "Oh no, The Burbs is on. We're watching The Burbs." And I was like, "What the hell is that?" So he said, "Just watch it. It's going to be amazing." And we watched it that night, and from then on, it became an instant favourite of mine, and I've watched it many, many times since. Now, admittedly, I haven't watched this movie for a couple of years now, but I feel like I know every word to it, or 95% of the script I think I could recite off by heart. But I didn't really realise how amazing that opening theme tune is, Nightwork, when it zooms in on Hinkley Hills, and it just really sets you up for the movie and tells you that something really strange is happening in this neighborhood. And I've been listening to it many times since after this last viewing. But when this came on, I was just locked in and ready for another viewing of The Burbs. And the cast for this movie is stacked. I mean, there's some real talent on board here, and it really helps with the characters because each one of them stands out and has their own personalities that make them feel a little bit different, and that is largely down to how great the cast are. And I really like how the main trio of Ducommun, Dern and Hanks work in this movie. Tom Hanks plays Ray Peterson, who he's got these two friends in his ear saying, "Oh, Ray, these people are murderers who've moved in next door to you. They're burying people in the backyard. There's just something not right about them, and we've got to get to the bottom of it." And he counter-argues them all the time, saying, "Oh, maybe they just want to keep to themselves, or, maybe they're just a little bit different. Maybe it's us who should go and introduce ourselves and say hello." But deep down, he knows they're right, and he is so desperate for them to not be right and for it to be a simpler explanation. I really like Art and Mr. Rumsfeld in this movie, who they think the same thing, but the movie works well to make them very different characters. You got Art, who's this very loudmouth, comedic type character who's just larger than life, and he just doesn't care. And then you've got Rumsfeld, who's really serious about the whole situation. He's like this ex-army guy, and he thinks it's his own personal mission to find out what is going on here. He treats it like he's still in the army, and these are his little soldiers, and they're going to get to the bottom of it.
A soldier's way saves the day.
And all the cast members just breathe life into these characters. Carrie Fisher is very much the sensible person in the street who plays Carol, Ray Peterson's wife. She's always trying to reel her husband in and stop him nosing next door and hanging around with his two crazy deluded friends. And you got Corey Feldman, who plays Ricky, who lives across the road. And I like the way he's always given a bit of exposition to his girlfriend, but she sort of acts as a viewer as well. And he gives a lot more details about the characters, kind of like when they're snooping around the neighborhood, and he's saying, like, this guy's about this, you've got this guy and he's about this. I think that worked really well for the movie. And I really like when he says, "God, I love this street." Me too, Ricky. Me too.
God, I love this street.
And one thing I noticed a hell of a lot more on this viewing, and appreciated a hell of a lot more, was the genius of Joe Dante's directing and where he points the camera. There's so many great shots in this film, but my favourite now has got to be when Hans, one of the Klopeks, comes out of his house for the first time and the whole street are just staring at him, but it's done in a big 360, camera movement. I just think that's a beautiful shot and just totally works. And he really makes the Klopeks house stand out. It's kind of like a dark cloud in this beautifully lit up street. It's kind of like the greatest street in the world. I would love to live there. But this house is kind of the eyesore of the street, and it's really well designed, I've got to put it that way. But Dante elevates this house and the Klopeks when they come on screen with his directing. Another great example of this is when Hans drives from his driveway to the garbage cans, and our little trio are kind of spying on him there, and he gets this bin bag out of his car, and there's a low angle shot with this lightning strike just coming down and the music is on, and it just really makes you feel like he is actually carrying a dead body and dumping it in the garbage cans. It's a real nice touch. And also later on, when Ray and Art break into the Klopek's house, there's lots of Dutch angle shots, and it really makes the Klopek's house feel like a haunted house attraction that you would see in a fairground or something. And you know what? I think it's just as I get older now, I look back on all my favourite older films and I just see these new little things, and it's so fun to notice. So yeah, like I said, I really appreciated the talent and the genius of Dante here. The mystery of the Klopeks is so well done in this film as well. There's a lot of anticipation built up for the first half of the movie, because we as a viewer just really want to get inside the house and see what is happening, but we're just fed little snippets here and there, bits of dialogue that characters think, what are these Klopeks doing in their house and stuff, and it just kind of builds up, and you're kind of like, all right, I can't wait to see the outcome of this movie. And as Ray Peterson becomes a little bit more obsessed with them, you kind of go along with the ride for him. You kind of like championing on to get to the bottom of it.
Go for it, Mr. Peterson. Yes!
And I really like how crazy Art is in this movie. He's very, very loud about the whole thing. He's like, oh, these people are murderers, the ghouls, the devil worshippers. And as a viewer, you're just like, my God, this guy has lost his mind. But as the movie goes on, he seems to become less and less crazy, and you actually think that he is actually right about this situation. They find a femur bone where Ray's dog digged it up next to the fence, and Ray Peterson looks out his window one night and the Klopeks are all digging in the backyard at like 3 a.m. So I like how we learn all this information, and Art is just, he's getting so excited about this situation, but Ray couldn't be any more different. He's covering his ears about it. He does not want Art to be right, and it's just a real fun contrast between the two. And as the movie goes on, you can just see the frustration in Ray's face. And there's a dream sequence in this movie, and I'm not usually a massive fan of dream sequences unless it can give something to the story. It's not just a character killed off and then they wake up. And this one does actually do something, because Ray Peterson, you can just tell in this dream sequence how much the Klopeks are in his head, how much is taking over his life, and you know, it's become an obsession now. But why I mention this dream sequence as well is because I was always fascinated by this as a kid. Ray Peterson is watching TV before he goes to bed, and there's a scene from The Exorcist where Linda Blair vomits on the priest, and a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 scene where Leatherface is just putting a chainsaw, I think he puts it through the wall or something, and I was like, what the hell are these movies? I didn't even know they existed back then. So I thought I'd mention that. But another thing that, you know, it's just kind of a side note here. When Ray Peterson wakes up from the dream, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood by Fred Rogers is walking along singing the theme song. Ray Peterson actually wakes up and he's watching that, and everything seems okay again. But I just thought it was fun that when I found out Tom Hanks was playing Fred Rogers in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, this scene instantly came to my head. Which is fun that he actually played him, but was actually watching him at one point in The Burbs in 1989. And I think it's really fun when we finally get to the Klopeks house and we see inside that they haven't even unpacked, and it's just a real scruffy family. I mean, they've got a photo where the picture came with the frame and they haven't actually put a family photo in there. So you just know that they don't belong in this street at all, and there's a real awkwardness between the characters, and the first time you're watching it, you're just like, oh, geez, what's going to happen here? And I gotta say though, my favourite Klopek in this movie is definitely Ruben. He is an absolute scene stealer. He only comes in halfway through the film, but oh man, I just find this character so fun and hilarious, and some of the best lines of dialogue that he says is, I love it when he finally appears in the house when they go and visit, and he just walks straight past everyone. Just walks up to Ray Peterson and says, "You are the one who lives next door."
Well, how do you do?
You are the one who lives next door.
Or when his brother comes out, you know, from the cellar, and he goes, "My brother." the doctor. Man, I used to quote them lines constantly. But there are so many fun lines of dialogue throughout this film. It's a typical 80s movie that you can just quote all the time. Ruben again, when, you know, all the people are sitting on his car at the end, Ricky and all his friends, and he goes up to them and goes, "Okay, hip cats, get off my car." He got Bruce Dern when the noise is coming out the cellar, and he's like, or the basement, should I say, and he's, sounds like they're cooking a goddamn cat over there. And everyone's favourite one as well, when Hans is handing the sardines out. Sardine. Man, I friggin' love this movie.
Sardine?
And the movie just has a really, really fun third act as well, when the Klopeks go out for the day and Ray and Art decide to break in, and then you've got Mr. Rumsfeld in his full war mode outfit, you know, with the siren and everything, the sniper rifle. You got Ricky bringing all his friends over to watch the big show that's going to happen in the middle of the street. And then you got a great little confrontation between Ray and Dr. Klopek in the ambulance. I love that scene. And I got to say, what a great ending this movie has, because we are all led to believe that there might be some dead bodies in this house, and Ray is digging holes and everything. Oh, not so much. He's just lazing around while Ray digs everything. But I loved the little touch where all the evidence all along was in the Klopek's boot of their car. I just think that is such a good way to finally reveal where all these strange things have been happening, and it is actually all there, but not where all the characters thought it was.
This your vehicle, Dr. Klopek?
Another nice little touch here is one of the final lines of the movie. It's a good note to end on, because Ray, Mr. Rumsfeld, and Art have been acting like teenage kids all throughout this film, you know, like just sneaking out at night and stuff, spying on the neighbours, something you do when you're 12 years old. And Ricky is the youngest kid in the street, and I just really like, after everything that's happened, Ricky says, "Where are you going?" And Ray says, "Look, I'm going to go away for a while. Keep an eye on the street for me, Ricky." Like, he doesn't want to put the other two in charge whatsoever. And I just think that's awesome. So, yeah, cool little ending there. And Ricky, of course, again says, "God, I love this street." It's just a great note to end on. And that big zoom out at the end, where we just see the big globe, or the earth, basically, if you like, has always fascinated me. This is a huge thing that has been happening. All these dead bodies have been uncovered in this neighborhood. But it just zooms out, and it's just this tiny little dot on the earth, and it just shows how big the world is, really. Just thought I'd mention that. It's always kind of fascinating. Now, one thing I can never quite put my finger on about this film is when Carol comes home to see Ray has come out the house, you know, blown to pieces and stuff, but she's not really angry at him. And this is before we've uncovered all of the dead bodies in the boot of the car. Maybe she just feels sorry for him because he's badly injured, but I thought she would have had a real temper with him for lying to her and stuff, because all the way throughout the movie, she's kind of trying to, you know, bring him down a peg or two and just say, "Look, there's nothing bad about these neighbours." And it just confused me that she's just real okay with the situation. Like, this big break-in that he's done next door and blew the house up, she's just fine with it. It just seemed a little bit out of character, but maybe in the comments you guys can explain that one to me. What I realised when watching this movie, guys, is it's just so simple but so entertaining. It's just an easy to go along with script and very, very easy movie to watch. But man, it's just one of the greatest horror comedies / comedies. It is more comedic ever made. Okay, guys, I'm just going to go ahead and rate this movie now. I'm going to give The Burbs a solid 9 out of 10. Easily one of my favourite movies of all time. And even on this rewatch, I just love it even more now. Okay, guys, at the end of these reviews, I always like to leave a little fun fact. Now, a fun fact for The Burbs is that Queenie, Walter's dog in this, played the same dog in The Silence of the Lambs. Precious, I believe it's called. Man, that is, I just never knew that until quite recently. Okay, guys, hope you all enjoyed this review. What do you think of The Burbs? Do you think it's a classic? Do you think it's one of the best comedies ever made? Are you not a fan of it? Let me know down below in the comments and I'll get back to you all, I promise. Please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel if horror is your sort of thing. Thanks so much, guys. You all take care, and I'll see you on the next video.